Sporting some updated specs, but also the same Berserker mindset that this King Blue Stag Beetle type has always had when it comes to the thrill of battle. It is KWG06T TyrrellBT, with a completely new updated kit of Desperate T, Double Beam Sword T, biped legs, and the leg ability of Stand Form, which is a brand new leg ability that reduces the power of incoming attacks when attacked by an enemy's combatant. Now, Tyrell Beetle unfortunately is one of the models that has kind of fallen really hard by the wayside. At the time he released, he was actually quite the formidable force to be reckoned with some very powerful arms, a relatively chunky leg ability, and a head skill that only made him hit even harder and kind of benefit from the recoil that would come with Desperate. And that's not even touching on his alternative mode and the kind of very powerful wide range of shooting skills that he brought to that table. But given that he did fall by the wayside, it does only make sense that with the eclipse of the Meteorot Damashi series finishing its airing, that he does finally come back up to center stage with some brand new specs and just some kind of spruced up skills to put him back in the limelight. Desperate T on the head part is a support skill that, when activated, is basically just standard Desperate but with some extra perks to it. And basically what Desperate is that it doubles your power of your next attack, but it also guarantees that half of the damage that you deal on that blow will be dealt back to Tyrell Beetle as recoil damage. And it is also worth noting that this recoil damage can and will break parts upon attacking a target as recklessly as Tyrell Beetle is capable of. And it's for this reason that it is kind of very weird and very cautionary to take advantage of, but that extra damage bonus is most certainly something that to not sneeze at either. Now, Desperate T, on the other hand, does add an extra perk to make it just a little bit more palatable to the stomach in terms of what it brings to the team. While you still have to put up with the recoil damage that the damage buff will give you as a conditional caveat, it does also give you the opportunity to reduce the recoil from 1/2 to only 1/4 of the damage dealt, which is most certainly going to be a lot more notable of a change and far less likely to actually break anything immediately, while still being able to keep the cake of the higher damage bonus on that next turn. Beam Sword T on both arms is also a relatively new skill, but not necessarily in standard definition as well. Basically, it's just your standard Beam Sword, which is an optic attribute melee skill with double damage at 30% charge and triple damage at 100% charge. But the bonus to this one is that it also has a reduced charge requirement upon raising it and ascending the part rank to higher levels, be it level 90 or even level 100. So it does mean that it's going to be a little easier for Tyrell Beetle, or TyrrellBT, I guess I can call it, the T standing for Twisty Mode, being able to reach those bonuses just a little bit easier. So he will have an edge on him just compared to what he had originally, where he kind of had to put up with the original 30 and 100% charges. Now, if fully raised, he only has to hit those at 10 and 80 instead, which makes it a whole lot easier to manage those and keep up to date on those damage bonuses, especially given that he is pretty charge reliant. Biped legs means that he'll hold relatively solid coverage on all terrains across the board, but with relatively diverse coverage. But the leg ability of Stand Form, and yes, you can go ahead and make your JoJo stand jokes now, you can go ahead and get him out of your system. Basically, it means that anytime that he's attacked, he will actually have the ability to reduce that incoming damage a certain percentage, up to about 32.5% roughly, to be able to keep himself as healthy as possible. Now, this is kind of a nod, more or less, to the original base ability he had of Fortress before he was upgraded, which was basically a free damage reduction in the same instance. But more or less just kind of fitting the bill now, I guess, for a Berserker as powerful as Tyrell Beetle can be. Now, when it comes to specs across the board, he's actually pretty solid as well, and it basically still maintains the same bulk he had, with a head HP of about 38-39, arms at 40-19 each, and legs at 43-79. It's going to be kind of tough to take this guy down, because he is going to be making pretty good use of that bulk whenever he is on the field. And that's not even touching before Stand Form does come into play. His leg stats have probably gotten the biggest upgrade, though, compared to most of the other perks here, since originally he was kind of chugging behind with some relatively lower numbers when he was first released, but given that he's fallen hard by the wayside, these numbers are most certainly what the doctor ordered. With a base mobility of 808, he's definitely off to a good start and a much better start now when it comes to his overall speed as well. An evade of 965 isn't terrible. It does mean he's not going to be dodging or grazing often, but he does have the opportunity to do so. But he does also have some very solid numbers at a melee resist at 1633 for up close and personal combats, and as well as a shoot resist of 962 for long range. Now, that 962 is not terrible either, as typically if you stay around the 1000 mark, you can kind of hold your own fairly well, but it is going to be a little bit of a cautionary tale to not use TyrrellBT, or TyrrellBT I should say, when fighting anyone that has a mastery in long distance, because they will probably puncture that armor of his a lot faster and a lot easier than it would be trying to get up close in his personal space. Now, the other thing about TyrrellBT a lot of people will come to know and love is the fact that he can meta change into a true beetle-like form, where he would exchange his melee kit out for an all-shooting one. That is not quite the case with this specialized version of TyrrellBT. This one in particular actually is the first ever instance and introduction of the iconic Master Beetle fusion that was introduced in the Medarot Damashi series. And being completely honest, it was kind of a really strange approach on how they chose to go about this, given that it was also revealed that Arc Beetle DT will also have the same style and same meta change form. But with the way that TyrrellBT does also bring it is a very nice nod to them as a pair, focusing more on a more melee-oriented basis while he's on the field. Drive A is a completely brand new skill of Master Thunder, with other skills in Jet Blow, Revenge Sword, Flight Legs, and another new leg ability of Detect, which buffs power and success if the target has low evade. Now, as explaining Drive A briefly, Master Thunder, part of this relatively new special skills series that they introduced with the first two crafty modes of Meta Sprayer and Meta Shears, Master Thunder is most certainly going to be a new skill unto itself as well. Explaining it briefly, basically it's Deathlock and Thunder at the same time. So not only are you going to be preventing the foe from being able to dodge or defend and lower their heat and cool stats, but you're also going to be stopping them cold the moment that you do attack them. So this will not only give you a chance for the next hit to really be painful when you bring it up, but also guarantee that you're going to be stopping them in their tracks and buy yourself just a couple extra precious seconds of time once you're on your cooldown from it. Jet Blow is a melee skill that upon activating basically gets a damage plus relative to how far away the target is from TyrrellBT. So if the target is right up there with you at the center line, you probably won't be dealing a whole bunch of significant damage, but farther away, you will most certainly be making every hit as painful as possible. Drive C is another melee attack of Revenge Sword, which does conventional basic melee damage upon attacking the target. But if the user's HP is under half, under 50%, the Revenge Sword gets double damage, and in addition also grants piercing damage throughout the time that they stay under 50% HP. The Revenge Sword makes it very clear that this is something that you want to use when TyrrellBT is pushed up against the wall, not necessarily something you want to start right out the gate with. And it's actually abundantly clear as well that this form of Master Beetle is one that specializes in basically not even touching this form until a couple turns of battle have commenced. Once TyrrellBT has taken a pretty large number of hits without anything being broken, then you could possibly transform into Master Beetle mode and really start cooking on the extra skills brought to the table. Now, when it comes to his base leg stats as well as change form, a mobility of 1065 is really good, and an evade of 2370 is also exceptionally good, as expected of flight legs, emphasizing high speed and high evade. But he also does kind of balance out his resist stats just a little bit with a melee resist at 1481 and nearly doubling his shoot resist at 1857. So it's obvious that in this form, he is definitely designed to take hits a whole lot better than he did before. But he also is trading away the ability of stand form for another leg ability of detect, which will make his hits even stronger if the target he's attacking has lower evade. so kind of likely puts him in the same vein as, say, Avoidance or Elusive to a point, if done correctly. All this being said, though, as a pure set score, I honestly have to rate this spruced up version of TyrrellBT a relatively well-rounded 7.5 out of 10. While giving him some spruced up numbers definitely does help with bringing him back to the forefront of the spotlight, especially in a game where speed and a lot of conditional attacks are key. A lot of these extra perks can really come to TyrrellBT's advantage if used correctly. But a number of the big weaknesses he does have is the fact that he is very largely still Metaforce reliant with the use of Beam Sword T, and the fact that he also has no charge sustained by himself. So he is going to be kind of taking some turns to charge or develop a charge over time as he's attacked without anything actually breaking. Plus, he is also kind of blind, unfortunately, with his success stats in base form and even his meta change form as well, not super great either, floating between the mid 900s at best, at the very worst, and just barely over 1200 on just one of his skills in drive mode. So something else to keep in mind of as well is he probably will have a pretty fair likelihood of missing attacks or being grazed. As mixed parts, though, I do have to rate him just a little bit lower at a 7 out of 10. One of the biggest reasons that you would be getting TyrrellBT is mostly for his meta change mode of Master Beetle, because it does change a lot of the skills that he does bring to the table and gives him just a little bit more of a competitive edge that does not require him to have any kind of charge sustain, so he can alternate between modes fairly easily. As mixing the parts, though, you do kind of have to sacrifice a good chunk of that, and at that point, it's basically just a damage plus and recoil, just some souped up beam swords, and just a relatively basic reskinned but faster version of his original leg with Fortress and a different leg ability. So it's still going to be a very solid array of skills that you can make use of, because Beam Sword is definitely something not to sneeze at. But as far as he's concerned and what he brings to the table, if you're not going to use TyrrellBT as a pure set, you're kind of missing out on half the reason he's there to begin with.